Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto became a vampire. Naruto, the hated Kyuubi jinchuuriki, is sent to a school for monsters to complete his education before he can return to Konoha. But in a place filled with monsters he wonders just who the true monster is. Welcome aboard! Chapter 7, Happy Birthday! Late Saturday, following training with the martial arts club, Mocha and another girl entered the girls' dorm. The attendant looked up and noted the two ladies. She then returned her attention to her magazine. As the two of them took the stairs up to the fourth floor, Mocha turned to her blonde friend. "I'm sorry about this, Naruto-kun," Mocha whispered. "But boys aren't allowed past the first floor." The rather attractive blonde girl smiled back at her. "No problem, Mocha-chan. I used to go out like this all the time." She looked over at him in surprise. "Really?" "Sure." "Was it part of your ninja training?" "A little bit, mostly it was something to do when I was bored." "Oh, and it was also a great way to get some free meals." She really wasn't sure how to answer that, so she settled for leading him up to her room. Naruto was really excited at the chance to be alone with Mocha in her room. She opened the door and he stepped in. Surprise! A loud shout greeted him the second he stepped through the door. There, standing in front of him, were Kurumu and Yukari. Hanging from the ceiling was a sign that read, "Happy Birthday." To say Naruto was surprised would have been a bit of an understatement. He dropped the hinge and stared at the girls. What's going on here?" he asked warily. "We wanted to celebrate your birthday, Naruto-kun," Mocha said shyly as she shut the door. "That's right." Kurumu launched herself at him and forcibly shoved his face into her chest. "Happy birthday, Naruto-kun." As she continued to press his face into her cleavage, he began to wave his arms about wildly. "I think you're smothering him," Yukari pointed out. Able to breathe again, Naruto looked at the three girls. Thanks for the thought, I really appreciate it. But I don't usually celebrate my birthday." "Why not, darling?" Kurumu asked. "A lot of reasons, but mostly because this day just reminds me of a lot of bad memories." "Then we should try and make some good memories on this day," Mocha said gently. "That's right," Yukari said. "You're turning 16 and we should definitely celebrate it." "I appreciate it, but I'd really rather not," Naruto said. "But we all got you presents. And I even made you a special birthday cake." Kurumu hurried into the kitchen. Naruto noted that Mocha's room was a lot bigger than his. It was actually a small apartment. Apparently, the girls got more living space than the boys did. They were in a small living room that connected to a little kitchen. There were two doors that Naruto suspected led to a private bathroom and to Mocha's bedroom. "Here it is," Kurumu said happily as she came out of the kitchen holding a birthday cake on a tray. All three of them stared at the cake she was holding. "What sort of cake is that, you blue-haired bimbo?" Yukari shouted. "What?" "It's chocolate. Naruto-kun likes chocolate." "But you made it look like a naked version of you," Mocha said, embarrassed. "It's an X-rated birthday cake," Yukari said, outraged. "So what? Naruto-kun likes looking at my body." She smiled at him. "Don't you, Naruto-kun?" Ah. Naruto tried desperately to think up a safe answer. "Open wide, Naruto-kun, and make sure you're looking at me as you eat it." Kurumu placed a forkful of cake into his mouth. Why are you feeding him again?" Mocha asked. "It's a tradition, you don't mind, do you, Naruto-kun?" He shook his head as he ate the cake. It was really good. Kurumu really knew how to cook. He swallowed his cake. "Not at all, I think it's kind of cute that you want to feed me." Kurumu smiled at him eagerly. "So, is there anything you'd like to tell me, Naruto-kun?" "The cake is really delicious, thank you for making it for me." He was surprised when his answer seemed to disappoint her. Is that all you want to tell me? It's really, really delicious? He wasn't sure what he was supposed to say. Kurumu was staring at him in confusion. No way. That love potion I put in the cake should have him confessing his undying love for me. Kurumu had put in a special succubus formula, it only worked on males, that should have made him fall in love with the first girl he saw after eating it. What she didn't realize was that one of the Kyuubi's little gifts was that it made Naruto immune to all poisons or mind-altering drugs. Here, try some more cake. She shoveled another forkful into his mouth, hoping that he just needed a bigger dose. After 4 servings, the girls were finally able to convince Kurumu to stop force-feeding Naruto cake. Eventually, they got to the point of giving him their presents. Kurumu handed him a huge cloth sack. Here's my gift, a year's supply of cookies. He accepted it with a laugh. Thanks, Kurumu-chan. Yukari then stepped up with what was obviously a rather thick book hidden beneath some wrapping paper. Here, Naruto-kun, this is a very special to me that was in my family's library. I had to go all the way back home and convince my dad to part with it, but it's yours. Happy birthday. Yukari liked books a great deal more than he did. But obviously she'd gone through a great deal of trouble, so he took the gift appreciatively. Thank you, Yukari-chan. He quickly removed the wrapping. Oh, a book about ninja, well that's really thoughtful of you. Look inside, she encouraged. Just to please her, he opened the book to a random spot and took a quick glance. It's really... He suddenly noticed just what was written down in front of him. No way. Ha, I knew you'd like it. Yukari said happily. Oh Yukari, thank you, thank you, thank you. He picked the 11-year-old up into the air and twirled her about as he hugged her. Just what the hell is in that book anyway? Kurumu asked. Naruto set the little girl down again. It has jutsu formulas and instructions. This book is like a whole collection of jutsu scrolls. Now I can finally start learning how to use more than 2 lousy jutsus. Yukari nodded. That book lists 200 jutsus that were popular when it was published about 70 years ago. It also contains information on various ninja techniques and practices. This is great. He was eagerly flipping through the pages trying to decide what he should study first. How can I ever thank you? How about you, me, and Mocha-chan spend the night together? Yukari answered immediately. Both he and Mocha blushed at the suggestion. I don't think that's going to happen. Well, how about a thank you kiss? He smiled at her. Now that I think I can do. He leaned down to give her a kiss on the cheek. Yukari, timing it perfectly, turned her face and received his kiss on her lips instead. Yeah! She shouted. My very first kiss from a boy. Naruto looked at the little girl in surprise, and with a sense he had done something slightly criminal. That's also the first time I've ever kissed a girl. Somehow Yukari had gotten his very first kiss. Oh, me next, me next. I want a thank you kiss too. Kurumu said and came up to him. Naruto hesitated, but couldn't really think of a fair way not to kiss Kurumu as well. So, he leaned in and kissed her lips. Despite all her wild behavior and attitudes, she was actually as inexperienced as he was. It was a chaste short kiss, but when he ended it, he was very pleased to see the girl was blushing and looking very happy. Naruto glanced over at Mocha, sort of hoping she would ask for one too. Seeing him look in her direction, she nervously cast her eyes down on the floor. Naruto had expected Mocha's present next, but she had asked to give it to him later. For the next couple of hours, he and the girls ate cake, drank punch, and talked. Naruto kept peeking at his new book, looking at all the cool jutsus. In one night, he'd just gotten more help in the ninja arts than he's received in the last 3 years. This was by far the best birthday he'd ever had. When had turned 9, Irika had tried to celebrate it with him, but he hadn't been interested. though he'd still accepted the really cool fire truck Irika had gotten him as a present. He was surprised when it was time to wrap things up and he was actually feeling disappointed. Kuruma wanted to stay a while longer but Yukari insisted that they had to leave him and Mocha alone so she could give him his gift. After saying good night and Yukari dragging Kuruma out the door, Naruto found himself alone with Mocha in her room. The two of them stood wrapped in an awkward silence for a moment. Both acutely aware they were alone together. "Thank you for all this," he finally spoke. "This was probably your idea. I've never really celebrated my birthday before, it was fun." She smiled. "I'm very glad you enjoyed it, Naruto-kun. I know how lonely birthdays can be sometimes and I wanted you to have a good one." She paused and gathered herself. "So, why don't I give you my present?" "Okay." From out of her coat pocket, she produced a small glass vial with a pinkish liquid inside. "Here," she handed it over to him. He looked at it curiously. "What is it?" "A potion of dream summoning," she told him. "It's a very special magical potion that will allow you to speak to the spirit of someone long dead within your dreams. In this case it will allow you to speak to your parents." What? He stared at her, not believing. "If you drink this potion you will fall into a deep sleep and enter the dream realm, where your parents' spirits will be summoned. There they will be able to speak with you." He felt the blood drain from his face. "For real? It won't just be a dream." She shook her head. "If you take that potion, it will be absolutely real, Naruto-kun. It will only be for a few hours, but for that time their spirits will be with you and you can talk to them." He looked down at the small vial. "I have to warn you though," she said. "What they have to say to you may not be what you want to hear. Please understand that parents aren't always what we want them to be." Melancholy thoughts about her own mother and father flashed through her head. "I hope it is not the case, but meeting them might hurt more than never knowing them." He slowly nodded. "I understand, but I have to know. There are things I have to ask them." He took a deep breath. "Mocha-chan, thank you for this. I don't know how this is possible, but you've given me a chance I never ever thought I'd have. However, this turns out you have my thanks forever." She nodded. She'd known he would decide to take it. But he'd needed to hear the warning just the same. "If you're going to take it, why don't you come lie down on my bed? You can stay here until morning." He began to blush just at the thought of sleeping in Mocha's bed. "I was planning just to go back to my room and take it there. Is there any special reason why I should take it here?" She looked down, feeling embarrassed. "No, it's just, I would like to be able to watch over you while you are in this deep sleep." Hearing that, fresh warmth filled him. "All right, if you really don't mind." Her bed was surprisingly soft. There were red satin sheets that felt like silk to the touch. He was lying on top of her bed. His shoes and jacket off, but the rest of his clothes still on. She was sitting in a chair right beside him. "I'll just sit right here until you wake up," she said tenderly. "Thank you for this, Mocha-chan." He unstopped the vial and gave her a salute. "Sweet dreams." In one motion he tossed the liquid down his throat. It was surprisingly bitter. Almost as soon as he swallowed it, his eyes grew heavy and his head hit the pillow. She put away the vial and made sure he was sleeping comfortably. Then she sat back down to watch over him. "Sleep well, my dear one," she gently touched his face. "And dream of wonders." Chapter 8, The Dream. Singing. He heard a woman's voice singing to him. "All the clouds in the sky. All the stars in the heavens. I'll gather them up. For my precious little one. All the flowers in the field. All the dreams of my heart. I'll gather them up. For my precious little one." He thought she had a beautiful voice. It felt as though she was singing just for him. Along with the voice he began to realize that someone was holding him and rocking him back and forth. Normally he didn't like people having a hold of him, but this embrace felt gentle and comforting. He didn't mind it at all. He opened his eyes. He saw a beautiful face smiling down at him. She had green eyes and long flowing red hair. She was wearing what looked like ninja gear that was mostly orange. As he came fully conscious, he was also aware that he wasn't in his body. At least he wasn't in his current body. Somehow, he had reverted back into a small child of 6 or 7, back when he still had at least a little bit of innocence. Seeing his eyes open, she stopped rocking him and spoke. "Hello Naruto-chan, I am so happy to finally be with you again." Her tone was so tender and affectionate. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. He somehow knew that this woman would never harm him. Are you my cousin?" Her sudden laughter caught him off guard, as did her hugging him so tight. "Oh, how I've longed to hear you call me that, my little one." "Yes, I am cousin, I am your mother." Hearing that, he put his small arms around her and said something he had always longed to say just once. "Mommy." For several minutes they both simply wept and held on to each other. If this had been all there was, if the dream had ended at that moment, it would have been enough. For Naruto, to finally know his mother's face, to hear her voice, to feel her arms protectively around him, and to know that she had loved him. If there had been no more than that, it would have been enough. He remained securely in her arms, but began to look about. They seemed to be in a patch of dead forest. He recognized it as the terrain that surrounded Yukai Academy. "Mom, where are we?" She quickly wiped away her tears before answering. "We are in the realm of dreams, my son. The land around you will respond to your wishes. We are in this forest because it is where you want us to be." She reached down and gently wiped the tears from his cheeks. "Just as you are in this form because it is how you truly see yourself." Naruto shook his head, denying it. "I'm not a little boy. I'm a man and a ninja. In the waking world you are. But in your heart of hearts, you still see yourself as an innocent child." "No," he spoke in a weary voice. "I haven't been innocent for a very long time." He looked up at her. "Mother, do you know what my life has been like?" "I do," she squeezed him tight again. "And I'm so sorry, my precious son. You did not deserve the cruelty you received. Your father's dying wish was that you be seen as a hero." At her mention of his father, he suddenly looked around. "My father? Where is he? Weren't you both supposed to be summoned?" "I am sorry, Naruto-chan," she said sadly. "Your father's spirit is locked away in the belly of a Shinigami." Fresh tears came to her eyes. "His sacrifice was for all of time, and so he can never see you, not even here." "I don't understand," Naruto said. "It didn't seem fair." She sighed. "Let me start by first telling you that your father and I both loved you very much, and that we both wanted you. Had the Kyuubi not come and had we both lived, I think we would have been a very happy family. But fate was not that kind, and your father was forced to make a terrible choice." "Choice? What sort of choice?" "Naruto, my name is Uzumaki Kushina and I was secretly married to your father, Namikaze Minato, who was the Yondaime Hokage." He felt his stomach turn to lead. I was the son of the Yondaime? The Hokage was my father?" "Yes, Naruto-chan, you are the son of the 4th Hokage and the last member of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans." He put a demon into his own son? He felt all the old bitter resentments rise up along with a fresh hate. How could he do that to his own son? "All this time, I thought I was just a victim of bad timing or bad luck. The village needed a baby and I just happened to be picked. But now you tell me it was done on purpose, that I was chosen. What kind of monster could do that to his own child?" "It wasn't like that." "Then how was it?" he asked bitterly. "Tell me, mother, how could he do that to me?" My own father. Naruto, you must understand, she said pleadingly. He was desperate and there was no other way. No mortal power could stand against the Kyuubi. The only possible way to save the village was to seal it. Your father did so at the cost of not only his life, but his immortal soul. And why was I chosen? Did he not love me at all? He loved you very much. Son, don't think the decision was made easily or without much suffering. It tore his heart to know that you would have to suffer. But the sacrifice had to be made in order to save the village. And he felt that the responsibility fell upon his clan. He did not feel he could ask anyone else to make a sacrifice he was unwilling to make himself. She paused, hoping he would understand. He understood the burden he was placing on you, but it was the only way. He truly hoped that the people would understand and see you as the hero you are. A hero? He said mockingly. Is that how he consoled his guilty conscience as he put that monster inside me? Do you know how the people of the village see him? He's not just a hero there, he is practically worshipped as a god. They built a shrine to him. People go there to make sacrifices and ask for good fortune, as though he were a kami. He looked at her angrily. Do you know how they treated me? Yes, she whispered. I know, my dear one. Fear, hatred, disgust, that's what I received, and I never even knew why. I would ask them as they hurt me why, what had I done? Every day I lived in that damn village I was treated like that and I never even knew why. And now you tell me it was because my father chose that for me. Naruto. He never loved me. That's not true. Your father did love you. He loved you very much. You don't hurt the people you love, Naruto said coldly. I don't know very much about love, but I at least know that much. There are two people I really care for, and I would never deliberately hurt them, not for any reason. Naruto, he never wanted you to suffer. Can't you understand that he was faced with a terrible choice? He had to balance his duty to you as a father with that he owed to the village as its Hokage. He struggled with the choice, but in the end, he felt he had to save the village no matter the cost. So he saved the village and condemned me? It wasn't supposed to be like that, she said sorrowfully. Why didn't I get his name? Why didn't people at least know who I was? So that they'd know when they were spitting on me, they were spitting on him too. Your father had many enemies outside the village. It was decided to keep your true identity a secret to protect you. Protect me? He actually laughed. Protect me? Ha, ha, it wasn't people outside the village who I needed protection from. So, all that time I was poor and living in a dirty little apartment with no heat, I was actually the heir to the Namake's fortune? I guess they wanted me to be poor to help protect me too? Naruto, your father didn't know how things would go. He had only a few hours to make his decision. He did the best he could under the circumstances. Can't you understand that? I understand I was used for the good of the village. As a ninja, I can accept that. For that is a ninja's lot in life, to be used by his village in whatever way they need him. But I wasn't a ninja then, I was a helpless baby. And my father should have protected me. You say it was my duty because I was his son? Yet I wasn't even allowed to have his name. His memory was worshipped while his son was treated like a criminal. I don't care if it wouldn't have been fair, he should have asked someone else's child to do this. If he really loved me then he should have protected me, not just used me. He looked into his mother's eyes. I will never forgive him. Naruto. No, he said firmly. I understand what he did and why he did it. But I'll never forgive my father for deliberately choosing to do it to me. Now I don't want to talk about him anymore. He put his arms back around her. We only have a little time, Mom. I want to know about you. Tell me about yourself, tell me everything you can. I want to know you. She wanted desperately to convince her son to forgive his father. But looking into his eyes, she could see the bitter feelings in his heart. There was so little time, and she knew that she would not be able to turn his heart in the little time they had. So, though it saddened her, she decided not to try. This was her one and only chance to talk to him. Very well, son, I was born of the Uzumaki clan in the village hidden in then whirlpool. When I was young. She told him wonderful stories about whirlpool and about the Uzumaki. He laughed as she told him about some of the pranks she had pulled and about her love of orange and of ramen. She told him about Konoha through her eyes. He wished he could see the village the way she did. She told him about battles fought and about precious friends long lost. He wept as she told him about the tragic end of the Uzumaki and of Whirlpool Village. He asked her questions and she answered them. And all the while she held him in her arms. It was wonderful. But it couldn't last. Kushina looked around and saw the trees and the ground beginning to fade away. She smiled back down at her son. Our time is almost up, Naruto-chan. No. He tightened his grip around her. Mom, I don't want to lose you. I'm so sorry, Naruto-chan, but you lost me many years ago. I am just so glad I was given this chance to hold you again and talk to you. We will meet again, though I pray not for many, many years yet. Now there is one last thing I need to tell you. What is it, Mom? That girl you like, Mocha? His mother smiled. I like her too, and I think she will be good for you. Thanks, Mom, that means a lot to me. He looked around and saw the world around them disappearing. He shut his eyes and pressed his face against her and held her as tight as he could. I love you, Mom. I love you too, my darling. Mom, keep telling me that you love me. I want that to be the last thing I hear. Her arms wrapped tight around him and gently began to rock him back and forth. I love you, Naruto-chan. I love you. 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 He opened his eyes. He was lying on top of Mocha's bed. Outside the window light was just beginning to leak in. He was looking up into Mocha's worried face. Naruto-kun, why are you crying? He felt her hand gently wiping his tears away. Did it not go well? He smiled at her and slowly sat up. It went fine. I met my mother and I got to know her. She really loved me. I'm very glad. What about your father? My father couldn't be summoned. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's fine, it turns out my father isn't who I'd hoped he'd be. She looked disappointed. Are you sorry you took the potion then? Not even a little bit, he leaned forward. Thank you, Mocha-chan, he kissed her. He could feel her lips tremble against his. But after the initial surprise, she relaxed and gladly returned his kiss. When he pulled back, he could see the blush on her face. So was that a thank you kiss? She asked nervously. Yeah, but this one's not. He slowly leaned forward and kissed her again. She closed her eyes and happily enjoyed the feeling of their lips pressing together. When this second kiss ended, her called her name in an urgent whisper. Mocha-chan? Yes? She answered a bit breathlessly. Will you go out with me? Will you be my girlfriend? She nodded happily. Yes, of course I will. They spent the rest of the morning kissing and holding each other. Chapter 9, Let It Begin. The news that Naruto and Mocha were a couple was greeted by despair by most of the male student body, by joy from Yukari, who saw this as a step closer to an eventual threesome, and as a challenge by Kurumu. I am not giving up on him, Kurumu told Mocha the first chance she got alone with her. Naruto-kun is my destined one and I am going to be with him. But Naruto-kun has decided who he wants, he is my boyfriend now. We are officially together. Mocha said. Humph, I refuse to see this as anything but an obstacle on my path to a happy marriage. Naruto is still young, it's only natural he makes some mistakes before he finally settles down with his true love. Mocha's face darkened angrily. What we have together is no mistake. Naruto-kun is mine now and I won't let you or anyone else take him from me. Kurumu smiled and crossed her arms over her chest. You have him for right now, but mark my words, he'll choose me in the end. 2 months later. In the pre-dawn light he took out a kunai. He let his wind chakra surround it. Focus on giving it an edge. Picture two sides grinding against each other, sharpening. When he was satisfied, he whipped the kunai back and threw it straight at a nearby tree. The blade went clean through the tree and then through the boulder lying behind it. Now that is an effective attack, he said happily as he retrieved his weapon. That was wonderful, Mocha applauded. More and more of their morning workouts together had been focused on his learning jutsus and ninja skills. She didn't mind in the least as it made him happy to increase his abilities and she was glad he was getting stronger. Yukai Academy could be a dangerous place after all. You are really amazing at how quickly you keep learning these new spells. Jutsus, he corrected. Jutsus, she repeated. You really are amazing. He smiled, enjoying his girlfriend's praise. Well, it's all thanks to Yukari's book. I've always been good at learning things when I'm really motivated. He ran through some hand signs. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Following a massive puff of smoke, 50 perfect clones appeared. Naruto puffed out his chest, especially pleased to have mastered this particular jutsu. You know, I spent years trying to make just one functioning ordinary clone without ever managing it. Then I was able to figure out how to make these really powerful shadow clones after just one night of studying. He shook his head in disgust. I can't help but wonder how powerful I'd be if I'd actually gotten some help from my village. With a thought he dismissed the clones. Well, the important thing is that you're getting stronger now, Mocha said. She smiled and moved closer to him. Your scent, it's wonderful. She had a look in her eyes that he had come to know well. With a sigh he turned his neck to her. Go ahead. Thank you. With that she eagerly sunk her teeth into him. That morning the first semester test results were posted. All 256 members of the freshman class were ranked. I'm number 1, Yukari said happily. See, I really am a genius. Hanging on firmly to Naruto's arm, Mocha pointed to where she was listed. I am number 13. Naruto smiled at her. My girlfriend, beautiful, powerful, and intelligent. Intelligent. What more could a guy possibly ask for? Mocha smiled happily. Since being with him she had started to forget what it had been like to be lonely. Where are you, Naruto-kun? He pointed to a spot on the opposite end of the board. I'm number 192, he said without any embarrassment at all. Naruto-kun, aren't you worried about your standing? Yukari asked. What do you mean? I'm passing everything with at least a C-. He said. I'm even in the top 75% of the freshman class. But you could be doing much better, Mocha insisted. I've seen the way you learn jutsus. I know if you just tried a little harder with classwork you could do much better. Maybe, Naruto admitted. But schoolwork just doesn't interest me the way learning jutsus do. So long as I pass, that's all that matters. Besides, it's not like I'm going to become a teacher or an accountant when I graduate. Yukari turned to a certain blue-haired succubus. So where are you ranked? Oh, I think they left my name out, she said. Actually, she was number 251. Let's all go have lunch. She quickly got them moving before they could spot her name up on the board. The 4 of them were sitting at one of the outdoor tables enjoying a quiet routine lunch. Though Mocha preferred blood, she could and did eat regular food. None of them noticed a small group watching them from one of the academy rooftops. One observer was especially interested. Half-breed scum, Saizu muttered angrily. Something wrong? Another student with a scar running down his forehead asked. Just look, Midu-san, he pointed angrily down into the courtyard. Akayashi Moka and Kurono Kurumu, the two most beautiful girls in the freshman class. They're sitting there with that worthless piece of garbage, Uzumaki Naruto. So? Midu asked, unimpressed. What does it matter who he sits with? He's a half-breed and not the worry of us outcast Ayashi, rogue monsters. We need to worry about the pure breeds who think they're superior to us. He has somehow started getting a reputation for being strong that is totally undeserved. I should know, I fought the little bastard. Fought and lost, from what I hear. Midu reminded him. It was Moka that defeated me, Saizu retorted. She's a vampire and I was no match. He's a total weakling. So long as I keep him away from Moka, I'd slaughter him. Rumor says they're dating, Midu pointed out. Keeping them apart might be difficult. I'm sure I could manage, with a little help. He nodded to the other two outcast Ayashi who both smiled. I'm down for it, a boy with a reptilian face said. If we take him down it will improve our reputations, right? That's just what I was thinking, Moroha, Saizu said. Naruto's getting way too much of a reputation from his fight with me and some guy named Taro. A half-breed with such a reputation reflects badly on us, right? Midu frowned, not only at Saizu but at the other two who were obviously eager to back him up. If you want to fight this guy I won't tell you no. But you had better understand something. Being part of this crew means everything you do reflects back on us. We only have one absolute rule, any fight we choose we definitely have to win. Failure won't be tolerated. Do you understand? Saizu grinned at his two supporters and nodded back to Midu. Sure thing, just leave it all to me. Midu shook his head and said nothing else. Saizu didn't really understand what he was risking by picking this fight. If he won, everything would be fine and his reputation within the organization would improve. But if he lost... Well, if he lost that would be proof he was weak, and there was no place for the weak among them. Following their club activities, Moka and Naruto were heading back to the dorms arm in arm as usual. Watching them from cover, Saizu felt his anger growing hotter. Ever since his humiliation at her hands, he'd longed for this day. Looking at her, he still hungered for her. Still longed to make her his. He wanted to humble her and show her that she was nothing but another weak female. As for Naruto, he wanted the bastard dead pure and simple. It infuriated him to think that lowly half-breed had somehow made Moka his. That a weakling like that could have something he hadn't been strong enough to take burned like acid in his mouth. There was no way he could ever let this go. Do it, he said. Moroha smiled and moved. Moroha had transformed his hands and arms into long blade-shaped bone. Moving quickly and from behind, he aimed to skewer Naruto. But he underestimated Naruto's senses and the amount of noise he made running across the ground. Hearing him coming from behind, Naruto reacted. Look out! He shoved Moka safely to the side as he himself dodged away. Moroha let out a shout of anger and frustration as he missed cleanly. Damn it! He turned to face Naruto as his friend came out to join him. Naruto-kun. Moka was about to run to his side when she was roughly grabbed around the shoulders by a fully transformed Saizu. Oh no you don't. Saizu dragged her back away from Naruto and the others. I know all about you transforming if he takes off your rosary. I'm not going to let him get anywhere near you. After my friends deal with your boyfriend, I'll pay you back for how you humiliated me. Saizu, please release me. Moka pleaded. Let her go. Naruto shouted furiously. You should worry about yourself, Moroha grinned as he and his friend spread out and began moving towards him from right and left. You're outnumbered after all. Naruto smiled at that. You think so? He performed some hand signs. Kagebushin no jutsu. There were puffs of smoke all around. When they cleared, there were 100 clones present. Count again. What the hell? Moroha stared about in sudden panic. Saizu. You never said he could do anything like this. He didn't have this trick last time. Saizu called out. Don't worry, it's just some weak illusion magic. Saizu found out this was not the case when the nearest group jumped on top of him trying to forcibly take his arms off Mocha. They had no success with that as they lacked the raw strength to force him to let go. However, one of the clones did pull on Mocha's rosary. It snapped off with a tiny clink. Her body was immediately surrounded by a powerful demonic aura. Oh, hell, not again! He wailed and let go of her. In the meantime, the other clones took out their kunai. Remember, the original shouted out. Two edges grinding against one another. That was the mental image suggested in a section of Yukari's book to help focus wind chakra. The clones all focused their chakra around their kunai, giving their weapons' edges far sharper and stronger than steel. All the Narutos gave a shout and came rushing forward as one, eager for it. Moroha and his friend tried to fight them off but had no chance. He was stunned when he saw some of the kunai slice right through his bone blades. They also had no trouble cutting into his hide. He and his friend screamed in pain as they were cut and stabbed. Naruto could have easily killed them both, but instead had his clones inflict non-lethal injuries, being satisfied to just defeat them. Meanwhile, Saizu was in an even worse situation. He was facing a very powerful and very angry vampire. You dare to touch me a second time? So, sorry? He held his arms out pitifully. He never even saw the punch that shattered his ribs and sent him flying through the air and crashing through a pair of trees. Before he could even stand, she delivered a vicious kick straight into his broken ribs that sent him flying through the air screaming in pain. When he again came to a halt, he found her standing over him, her foot pressing down onto his neck, cutting off his air. You miserable animal, how dare you attack me yet again? Do you dare imagine you are some sort of threat to me? Never again so much as look at me, or I will end your wretched life. Never touch me again, not even in your dreams. Know your place. With that, she removed her foot from his throat and instead kicked him in the ribs again, sending him flying once more. With the short brutal fight complete, Naruto dismissed his clones while the transformed inner Mocha approached him. She took a moment to glance at the two bloodied and defeated enemies lying in the road. It seems you truly have improved, Uzumaki Naruto. Are you injured? No, I'm fine, Mocha-ch, Mocha-san. Are you all right? With an amused look, she lifted a single eyebrow. Do you really believe I could be hurt by such a weak opponent? Well, not once you transformed, but you might have been hurt before. Your concern is unnecessary, Uzumaki Naruto, I am uninjured. She looked at him carefully. While I am here, I wish to discuss something with you. Yes? Her look of amusement disappeared and was replaced by a very serious one. It was a look that made him nervous. You should realize that while I am a different personality, I am forced to share this body with the other Mocha. As I know you are aware, what she experiences I also experience. He blushed a bit and nodded. Ah, yes, I know about that. He suddenly felt as though he were talking to his girlfriend's strict older sister. As the other Mocha accepts you as her boyfriend, and as it brings her pleasure, I will not object to your kissing her or touching her as you have done so far. However, she said sharply, you are not to go any further, most specifically you are not to take her virginity. As long as we share this body, I will not tolerate that. Is that clear, Uzumaki Naruto? He quickly nodded his assent. I understand. He was sure any other answer would lead to immediate physical pain. She then surprised him as she took out the rosary. If you wish to have sex with this body, I am the one you will have to seduce. He felt his jaw actually drop and his heartbeat begin to race. Though of course we both know that is impossible. She actually had a slight smirk on her face as she put her rosary back on and transformed into an unconscious teenage Mocha. From his hiding spot in the woods, Midu had watched the regrettable events play out. It was unfortunate, but he would have to deal with Saizu for failing. He had tried to warn him. It was a real shame. He'd had hopes for Saizu. Once that was out of the way, he would have to deal with the two of them, the vampire and the half-breed. They had just humiliated 3 members of his crew. There was no way he could let that stand. They had to die. Chapter 10, Awakening the Demon. Saizu howled as he felt the just-healed ribs snap and break. Mercy! He cried out. His answer was to have his ribs stomped on again. Mercy? Midu mocked. He brought his oversized fist down, cracking open Saizu's skull and sending blood spraying up into his face. There's no place for mercy here. I warned you what would happen if you lost, didn't I? Though in agony, he looked around at the other members of the crew. They were just sitting there watching. He saw his friend Mohoha and reached a hand out to him. Please, help me. What? What? You want me to be killed too? Mohoha said coldly. Can you at least try and die with a little self-respect? Midu sounded disappointed. You never showed anyone any mercy when you were on top. You can't really expect any now. He brought his fists down on Saizu's face again and again, flattening it and sending his brains and blood all over the floor. When he'd finally had enough, Midu stopped and looked up at the other members. He was pretty much covered in blood. He looked at their eyes and nodded to himself. There was no need to say anything. The lesson had obviously been taken to heart. Take this garbage and bury it somewhere. It had been a couple weeks since Saizu's attack. Naruto and Mocha were both glad that he seemed to have left school. Naruto was still amazed at how easily violence and even death was accepted here. Every week it seemed at least 1 or 2 students went missing or were found dead. At a normal high school there would have been mass panic and demands for better security or even demands that the school be closed. Yet here the violence was simply accepted. It was almost seen as a part of common life and hardly worth noticing. Naruto thought back to his time in Konoha. He fully understood that humans could be just as brutal, even the ordinary humans who were not ninja. But in human society, violence that occurred within the village was seen as an aberration, as a crime. War and ninja missions were in a different category. At least when the victim of said violence was not universally hated. When he thought about it, Naruto suspected there was probably as much violence in human society as there was in monster society. The difference seemed to be that humans tended to see violent behavior as the exception, whereas monsters viewed it more as the norm. He wondered if that meant monsters were more barbaric or just more honest. Even though he was surrounded by violence and potential enemies, Naruto was happier than he'd ever been. He was finally making headway in the ninja arts and becoming stronger. He'd made 2 really good friends who he'd grown close to and become fond of. And most importantly of all, he had an amazing girlfriend. Of course, there were a few issues. One of his friends was constantly threatening to smother him every time he greeted her. She was also trying her best to come between him and his girlfriend. As for said girlfriend, there was the slight issue that she liked to drink his blood on a daily basis. There was also the fact that she had a second personality that was kind of scary, though also very hot. Not to mention that if he ever wanted to have sex with his girlfriend, he would have to somehow convince that second personality. Well, no one ever said life was simple. What are you thinking? Naruto came out of his own thoughts and looked over at the girl he was walking arm in arm with. Mocha was everything he could have ever wished for in a girlfriend. She was absolutely beautiful, sweet, kind, smart, and even powerful. Every single time they walked together, he drew jealous looks from the other boys. Despite the problems that came with her being a suppressed vampire, he still couldn't help but wonder how such an amazing girl had wound up with an idiot like him. I was wondering why you chose me," he said. She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You're such an incredible girl, Mocha-chan," he said seriously. "And you can have your pick of any guy here. I'm just wondering why you picked me. I mean, there are better looking guys, stronger guys, smarter guys, so why are you with someone like me? She looked at him for a moment as they continued to walk together. She let out a deep sigh. Naruto-kun, please don't be such an idiot. Huh? All these boys, she glanced over at them. They stare at me and tell me how much they like me. They all like me in this form. If they saw me in my true form, they wouldn't come near me. I've seen it my entire life, vampires are not liked by other monsters. We are too powerful and too scary, they fear and avoid us. She put her head down on his shoulder. But you've seen the real me and you're not afraid. That is what makes you so special to me, Naruto-kun. That is why you never need to worry about any other boy taking your place. He smiled at her. Thanks, Mocha-chan, I'm sorry if I'm a little paranoid. It's just that I've never had a girlfriend before. Thank you for setting my mind at ease. I am happy to. They walked on for a little bit. Naruto, she lifted her head from his shoulder. She had a worried look on her face. There is something I've been wondering about too. Yes? What happens when you graduate? He looked at her in total surprise. Graduate? Why are you worried about that? That's a long way off. So, you haven't given it even a little bit of thought? Well, I don't really need to give it any thought. I am bound to follow the orders of my Hokage. He has already informed me that when I graduate from this place I will return to my village. I'll be given the academy graduation test and then be allowed to become a ninja and finally begin my career. Become a ninja? Aren't you a ninja already? Looking a bit embarrassed, he reached up and touched the Hittite that was always around his forehead. Well, technically, I'm only a citizen of my village. I won't become a ninja officially until I pass the test and am awarded the rank of genin. My old sensei gave me this and told me I was a ninja in his eyes, so I consider myself to be one even if it is unofficial. So, you'll go back to your village? He nodded. That's right. But I thought you hated it there, she said. You haven't told me much about your past, but I know they made you leave when you were 8. From things you said I know they haven't helped you much and you never mentioned the village in a positive way. I definitely got the feeling you didn't like it. Was I wrong? He let out a long depressed sigh. No, I can't say I have any good memories of that place. And to be honest, the idea of going back there makes me very, very nervous. Then why go back? She asked. It's complicated, he admitted. There are things you don't know about, things I can't tell you. But if I were to not go back, my village would come after me. The Hokage would send hunter nins to find and execute me. I would have to spend the rest of my life as a rogue ninja, what they call a missing nin. Besides that, even though I don't give a damn about the people there, I do want to see Irika-sensei again. I want to have a great career and be a great ninja so that he can be proud of me. She smiled. You really care about your old teacher, don't you? Except for you, Mocha-chan, he is the only other person that truly matters to me. And what about me? She asked in a small voice. What? What about me? She repeated. What place do I have in your future? Or do I only get to be with you for as long as we are both here? He brought them to a halt and turned to face her directly. Mocha-chan, what are you talking about? I am crazy about you and want you to always be with me. You're the girl who has my heart and I can't imagine ever giving it to anyone else. Naruto-kun, I feel the same way. Since I've been with you, it's like I've felt really alive for the first time. I don't feel lonely anymore, just getting to be with you makes me happy. And when you kiss me. She suddenly turned a dark shade of red. Well, you make me happier than I ever thought I could be. I don't ever want to be without you. Then you won't be, he said firmly. We'll always be together. How? She asked. I know how hard it was to hide my identity among regular humans. How long could I keep what I am a secret surrounded by ninja? If they found out what I really was, what would happen to me? Would they be willing to accept a vampire living among them? I don't know. She was asking some very hard questions. She was definitely right that it would be hard for her to keep her secret for any amount of time. The village would be suspicious of any outsider who was attached to one of their ninja, especially him. And given the abilities of the Inuzuka or the Hyuga or the Yamanaka, her secret was likely to be exposed before long. Then what? Would they allow a vampire to be a resident of the village? Naruto had no illusions about how tolerant the people of Konoha were. Seeing him struggling to try and answer, she gently reached out to take his arm and got them walking again. It's all right. Like you said, graduation is a long way off. You don't have to decide anything right this minute. For now, I am very happy with the way things are. She looked at him carefully. But eventually you will have to make a decision about us. He slowly nodded and did not say anything more. She had brought up some very difficult questions. He would need to give them some serious thought. When they got to the girls' dorm, they shared a quick kiss. Do you want to come over for some dinner and some studying? I'll make some of that ramen you like. He gave her a weak smile. Sure, he said. Mocha was an amazing girl with a lot of wonderful qualities. Alas, cooking was not one of them. I hope she manages not to burn the ramen this time. When the time came, there was a swirl of wind and leaves in Mocha's living room. Having learned the shunshin, he preferred to use it as a discreet way to go to and from Mocha's without anyone noticing. As soon as he materialized, he knew something was seriously wrong. Mocha was nowhere to be seen, and there was no smell of burnt ramen in the air. Mocha-chan? Mocha, are you here? There was no answer to his call. Looking around, he spotted her leather briefcase sitting on the kitchen counter. There was a note taped to it. They were in an old abandoned warehouse a few miles from that academy. Inside, Midu waited patiently as one of his men hurried up to him. He's coming, just like you said he would. Midu nodded, not surprised. He looked over to where Mocha was bound up in chains. He must really love you, I mean to just walk right into what is an obvious trap. I'd certainly never do anything so stupid for anyone. Why are you doing this? She asked. We've never done anything to you. You exist, vampire, and that's reason enough. Midu said coldly. You elitist bastards who insist on thinking you're so superior to the rest of us. We outcast Ayashi, despise all you pure breeds, and eventually we'll kill every last one of you. We'll create a world where our kind alone rule. Mocha stared at him. She could not understand such unreasoning hatred. Then leave Naruto out of this, he is human, so you have no reason to hate him. Sorry, but that's not going to be possible. He helped to defeat 3 of my people. I can't let a half-breed get away with that. Midu turned away from her and toward the gaping entrance to the warehouse. Naruto was calmly walking inside. Welcome, I thank you for coming. Naruto, please run. Mocha shouted to him. Get out of here. It's all right, Mocha-chan, he called out to her calmly. He continued to walk towards her as his eyes darted about. He could count 10 people, all of them between him and a chained-up Mocha. I trust you didn't tell anyone about this before coming here? Midu asked politely. No, I did as your note asked. Now let Mocha go. He casually took out a kunai. Smiling, Midu began to walk towards him. His people began to move to slowly surround Naruto. Your girlfriend was very hard to capture, I don't think I can just simply let her go. His body began changing and his right arm expanded into a mass of muscles. You know you're very brave to come here all alone. I would go anywhere or do anything for Mocha-chan. Now let her go or I'll make you pay for what you've done. Midu laughed and kept walking towards him, flexing his massive arm. And what can one little human do? Naruto smiled. I'm not just a human, I'm a ninja. With ease he threw the kunai at his opponent. Midu did not even bother to dodge as it sailed more than a foot from his head, actually landing near Mocha's feet. Is that it? Midu sounded disappointed. I saw you fight against Saizu, is this really all you're going to do to try and save your precious girlfriend? Midu was standing right in front of him, raising his arm. Naruto stood where he was, calm and unmoving. There's something you should know about ninja. What's that? Midu brought his arm down, viciously striking the top of his opponent's head. The instant he hit him, Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Well behind Midu and the others, the kunai's hinge was dropped and Naruto stood right in front of Mocha. Ninja know how to be sneaky when necessary. He reached out and pulled off Mocha's rosary. Immediately she was surrounded by a powerful demonic aura. Her hair became silver, her eyes red, and her body became a mature woman's. With ease she snapped the chains that had held her. She spared Naruto a quick nod before moving with her amazing speed straight at Midu. To be laying your hands on me, you trash. Before he could even move, she sent her fist into his face and Midu flying into and through a brick wall. Know your place. The other outcast Ayashi stood there in stunned horror and began to babble in panic. No way. She took him in one blow? We are so dead. Mocha looked at them contemptuously, then glanced over to Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, I thank you for your assistance. He smiled at her, relieved everything was now okay. No problem, Mocha-san. She looked back at the others. Leave now and never trouble either of us again, or else attack me and take your chances. They all looked at each other nervously. None of them eager to fight someone powerful enough to defeat Midu-san with just one blow. As Mocha was eyeing them, the pile of fallen bricks was tossed aside and Midu rushed toward her back. Don't underestimate me. He was fast and caught her with a powerful punch to her back that sent her down onto the concrete floor. Mocha! Naruto pulled out a pair of kunai and rushed over to her side. Are you all right? Ignoring his outstretched hand, she quickly got back to her feet. Do not be so concerned, Uzumaki Naruto, he caught me by surprise. She turned back towards Midu. But such a weak monster could never defeat me. Again, she moved straight at Midu with her full speed. Even though he was ready for her, he was too slow to block her attacks. She struck him a quick series of punches and kicks that sent him reeling back. He tried to hit her, but his punches with his huge arm seemed slow and clumsy, and she had no trouble evading them. As they fought, Naruto kept an eye on the rest of them. Since she seemed to be having no trouble with her fight, he decided to be her backup and keep an eye out for any sort of nasty surprise. One of the outcast Ayashi looked at another and nodded. Understanding, the second ran over to a lever at the far wall. Mocha looked down at her bloodied and beaten opponent. Have you had enough? She asked with a snarl. Or do you require more of a beating to know your place? Midu looked up at her and struggled back to his feet. So, this is the strength of a vampire. I finally understand, you take the energy of your demonic aura and convert it into physical power, don't you? Simple, yet dreadfully effective. But... He smiled at her with a bloodied mouth. With only this you cannot win against me. What did you say? Mocha prepared to continue his beating. Vampires may hold the greatest power, but in exchange they are famous for their many weaknesses. Above them there was a creaking sound, followed by the gentle fall of water from the sprinkler system. Among them being water, I believe. Ah! Mocha howled in agony and collapsed, her power painfully drained from her. Mocha-san. Seeing her in sudden trouble, Naruto ran towards her regardless of the danger. But with the vampire now incapacitated and helpless, the others were able to grab a hold of him. Get his arms and don't let him bring his hands together. Midu ordered. If he can't use his hands, he can't work any of his magic. Two got a hold of each arm and forced Naruto down to the ground. They were much too strong for him to shake loose, and while they held his arms, he could not work a jutsu. "Get away from Mocha!" he screamed at them. Midu wiped the blood from his mouth and smiled up towards the sprinklers. To think, all it took to defeat a mighty vampire was a little water. He looked down at her. She was awake and conscious, but barely able to move. "Would you like to make some more threats or tell me again about putting me in my place?" She looked up at him. Despite the pain, she was still able to speak. Please let Naruto go. Do what you want with me, but let him go." He shook his head. "Well, how noble, how tragic, someone should write a book. Neither of you are going to survive this. The only question is, who do I beat to death first?" He looked from Mocha over to Naruto and then back again. "Let's do this the old-fashioned way, ladies first." He lifted up his arm. "Stop!" Naruto howled. "Don't touch her." He struggled like an animal but remained pinned to the ground. "Does it hurt, half-breed?" Midu asked in a polite voice. "Knowing the girl you love is about to die and there's not a damn thing you can do but watch. Like I said before, what can one little human do?" He turned back to Mocha and got ready to end her life. Mocha looked up, unafraid. "Please escape, Naruto, I want you to live." Seeing what was about to happen, Naruto felt a terrible rage fill him. He shut his eyes and looked inside to a dark place that had always been there. "Give me power," he cried out. And there was an answer. Something frightening stirred and came awake. He felt its power flow through him like fire. "Done!" A voice boomed and began to laugh. Midu suddenly froze as he felt a new demonic aura fill the air. There were screams of terror as his people were suddenly tossed aside as though made of straw. Naruto was standing on his feet, a demonic aura blazing all around him. The aura was so powerful it actually took on a physical form, wrapping around Naruto like some sort of second skin. It took on the shape of animal, even creating ears and a single tail. Midu could see that Naruto's body had transformed as well. His hands had become claws, the scars on his cheeks had thickened, and he now had fangs. But most frightening of all, his eyes were red and slitted, just like the vampires. Mocha was also watching and was just as amazed. "Naruto, how?" Feeling not only his power but a ferocious killer intent, Midu began backing away, Mocha forgotten, his eyes locked on this new demonic figure. "Ho! How? You're human. You can't have a demonic aura. What the hell are you?" Naruto smiled. "I'm a monster, and I'm gonna kill you." Chapter 11, Trust. Power. Such incredible power. He felt it pouring out of him like light from the sun. He felt limitless, invincible, almost godlike. This is why they feared me, why they hated me so. The reason for all his past suffering was suddenly clear. They'd understood what was inside of him all this time. They'd understood that one day he'd have this power, and they'd been afraid. Could a human being really have this sort of power? He suddenly recalled what Irika-sensei had said to him so many years ago, telling him he was not a monster. I wonder if Irika-sensei might have been wrong. His train of thought disappeared as he saw Midu backing away from Mocha. "Ho, how? You're human. You can't have a demonic aura. What the hell are you?" He smiled. He could smell Midu's fear. "I'm a monster, and I'm gonna kill you." This bastard had been just about to kill the girl he loved. He'd get no mercy. Acting on pure instinct, he dropped to all fours and dashed straight for him. As Naruto came rushing at him, he let loose a blood-curdling howl that was not even close to human. Midu had been in 100 fights in his life and come close to dying a few times. He'd never been scared. Even as the vampire had been beating him senseless, he'd felt no fear at all. But that howl and the pressure of that killing intent bearing down on him left him feeling weak and frightened. Wait. He wasn't sure what he was going to say. But whatever it was, he never got the chance. Naruto raced up to him and raked his hand straight up and out. The demonic cloak that surrounded him mimicked his move. A claw made of the solid aura tore straight into his stomach and plunged in deep. Following the motion of Naruto's hand, it tore straight up through his chest and neck, gutting him and sending flesh and blood splattering all about. Mido collapsed in a lifeless heap without a sound, his eyes still open and his face still fearful. Naruto suddenly stopped and looked down at what he had just done. 8 years ago. Why do we have to kill Iruka-sensei? Isn't it enough just to fight and win? Why must we kill? Iruka looked down at the 8-year-old. This was one of the hardest parts about training ninja, the stripping away of childhood innocence and exposing them to the harsh realities of ninja life. Naruto, I am afraid that killing is simply a necessary part of being a ninja. There is no way to avoid it. Be certain, if you become a ninja you will have to kill at some point. But why? His own experiences had left him some strong opinions on the concept of murder. Iruka sighed. I'd like to tell you that you will only kill when absolutely necessary, to save your life or the life of a comrade. But that would be a lie. You may well have to kill under those circumstances, but it is just as likely you will have to kill even when that person is no threat. Assassinations are often requested and accepted by us and all other ninja villages. As a ninja you will be expected to be ready to kill whenever it is necessary. But why kill someone who's no threat? Naruto demanded. Because Naruto, the world is a hard place with hard problems. And sometimes the easiest solution, is to just kill the person who is the problem. Naruto frowned. I don't think I could ever really kill anyone, especially if they hadn't hurt me. Iruka looked down at him sadly. I'm sorry Naruto, but if you are going to be a ninja you have no choice, ninja kill. He swallowed and looked away. What if I can't? A gentle hand patted his shoulder. It may be very hard Naruto, but when the time comes you will do what has to be done. Just as I have and just as every ninja has. He'd always imagined the very first time he killed anyone it would be hard for him. He'd never once imagined it would be so fun. He'd enjoyed it. Turning around he saw the other rogue monsters looking at him in terror. He smiled, eager to do it again. Then he glanced down at Mocha. She was lying on the ground looking up at him. He couldn't read the expression on her face. Is she afraid of me now? He knelt down beside her. Are you all right, Mocha-san? She grunted and managed a slight nod. It was obvious she was in pain. Please take me away from here, Uzumaki Naruto. All right, he answered tenderly. Her safety mattered to him more than anything else. Not knowing how exactly, he suppressed his demonic aura, causing his cloak to disappear. His body, however, remained transformed. He carefully lifted her up and held her bridal style in his arms. Though he could not see himself, he knew he had changed. He looked down into her face. She was looking back at him calmly enough. Please don't be afraid of me, he whispered to her. Her lips seemed to twitch just a bit. And why would I fear you? Not sure how to answer that, he looked at the faces of Mido's men. They were all still looking back at him frightened. If any of you ever touch Mocha again, I swear I'll kill you. He brought his hands together to perform the necessary signs and he and Mocha disappeared in a swirl of air and leaves. Once he was actually gone, the remaining outcast Ayashi finally got over their fear. They all left as quick as they could, not even bothering to bury their former leader. They were panicked and were quick to tell others what they'd seen. Before long everyone at Yukai Academy would be talking about the human with the demonic aura. The two of them reappeared in Mocha's living room. Naruto carefully set her down on a small couch. Is this okay? Would you rather have me take you to the infirmary? She wearily shook her head. I have been badly drained, it will take me a few days to recover, but there is nothing they could do for me. I simply need rest. He nodded, relieved. He reached into his pocket and took out her rosary. Rosary. I'm glad you're all right, he handed her the rosary. I'll just go then. Her hand grabbed his wrist before he could begin forming the signs. Despite her exhaustion, her grip was quite strong. Sit down beside me, Uzumaki Naruto, we must talk. He gulped and slowly sat down beside her. She eyed him carefully. She wasn't afraid, he was sure of that now. Her scent, her wonderful scent, had no trace of fear smell in it. But she reeked of curiosity. Please explain to me how it was possible for you to have a demonic aura. And why you have transformed. Such things should be impossible for a human. I can't tell you. And why not? She said coolly. He looked away. Because if I tell you you'll hate me, he answered miserably. Do not be a fool, Uzumaki Naruto. He felt her hand gently touch his face and turn it back towards hers. You have fought beside me and saved my life. You are the most precious one to my other self. Whatever it is you tell me, I could never hate you. You sound very sure of that. She looked at him in surprise. Do you really think so little of me, Uzumaki Naruto? It's not that, he tried to explain. Everyone who knows the secret ends up hating me, except for two people. The old Hokage and Irika-sensei were the only ones who didn't end up hating me. If you hated me too, Moka-san, I don't think I could bear it. This is obviously difficult for you. However, she said firmly, I am going to ask you to trust that I will not be one of those who hates you. That's asking for a whole lot of trust, Moka-san. She slowly nodded. I realize that, Uzumaki Naruto, and I also understand that trust is precious and not easily earned. But please remember that I have fought for you and watched over you as you slept. You trusted me in those times, please trust in me now as well. He looked at her, his red eyes looking into hers. He remembered their very first day together. He remembered making the decision to tell her that he was human. He had literally put his life in her hands. He had trusted her then, he knew he could trust her now. I am what they call a jinchuuriki, he said quietly. I have within my body 9-tailed fox demon Kyuubi. He stared at her face worriedly, waiting for reaction. She took the news stoically. Please continue, she said serenely. On the night I was born, the village was attacked by the demon. No mortal power could fight against the Kyuubi. So the greatest ninja of the village, the Yondaime Hokage, decided to seal the demon into a baby, me. And so? He told her the story. He did not mention certain details such as the fact the Yondaime had been his father. He also left out exactly what happened on his 8th birthday. But otherwise, he told her all about how he had been given the Kyuubi and just how it had affected his life. She listened to all of it without interruption, calmly sitting there patiently with rapt attention. I see, she finally said when he was done. So, with the exception of your 3rd Hokage and your teacher, everyone reacted to the power inside you with an unreasoning fear and hate. He nodded. Pretty much. And you were afraid I would react in the same manner? He again nodded. She put her hand up to his forehead and flicked a finger in the spot just below his highlight. Ow. He looked at her in surprise. What was that for? Baka, despite trying to sound angry, she wore a light smile. Did you really think I would hate you simply for having a great power hidden within? I understand what it is like to face unreasoning fear and prejudice simply for being too powerful. So you really don't hate me? Of course not. The fact you were willing to expose this secret to protect me makes me think more of you, not less. He let out a relieved breath. However, I think it would be best to keep this a secret, even from Kurumu and Yukari. Well, I'm not going to tell anyone. But do you think they would hate me if they found out? No, Moka replied. But the reaction of the rest of the student body might not be so positive. She suddenly yawned and slumped forward against him. Ah, it seems I truly am exhausted. Her head was resting on his shoulder. Uzumaki Naruto, I, yawn. Need to ask a favor of you. Anything, Moka-san? She looked up at him with a slight grin. Please help me to remove my clothes. What? Without even realizing it, the shock of her request caused his transformation to end and he again took on a human appearance. Is this some kind of trick? No, this is no trick. I have already told you I will need to sleep for the next 2 or 3 days. I am exhausted and will need to remove these wet clothes before going to bed. I simply ask for your aid in this task. He turned a deep shade of red just thinking about it. I don't know. Does the thought of seeing my naked body offend you? No. But doesn't the idea of me, well, doesn't it bother you? Her smile widened a bit. No, for I trust you. He actually had to carry her into the bedroom, she was too weak to do more than stand. Though he knew the circumstances, Naruto couldn't help but feel like a new husband bringing his bride to the marriage bed. With his hands trembling a bit, he then helped her remove all of her wet clothing. He tried to be a gentleman, he did not say anything and did not allow his hands to wander anywhere they didn't belong. He tried not to stare, but there was no way for him not to see all of her. Her body was absolutely amazing, every inch firm and supple. She was not quite as voluptuous as Koramu, but there was nothing to complain about in any area. Right, I go. Guess I better go. He had done as she asked and now, she was standing there naked in front of him. Before he could leave, she leaned forwards, pressing herself against him. Her body was so incredibly warm and firm. She brought her lips to his ear and whispered to him. There is one last thing before you go. Yes? His heart was pounding and he was holding his hands out, not sure what to do with them. 1,000 possibilities were flashing through his head. He could feel her hot breath against his skin as she spoke. From now on, you have permission to call me Moka-chan. She let go of him and slipped into her bed and beneath her covers. Good night, Naruto. Good night, Moka-chan. He turned and fled her bedroom as fast as he could before he did something he'd regret. Watching him run away, the adult Moka smiled and laughed herself to sleep. Chapter 12, The Great Lord Kyuubi. Boring, 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 he muttered to himself. Moka had told him she would need to spend the next few days sleeping, so he hadn't been surprised when she wasn't there to work out with him. What had surprised him was that he'd grown so used to having her there with him. He'd spent years working out alone after Irika got recalled. He'd always been fine with it. But now he found himself missing having her there beside him. The morning workout just wasn't the same. Of course, there was something else on his mind. He'd barely gotten any sleep last night. He'd been thinking about Moka's gorgeous pale body and the feel of her skin as he'd slowly slipped off her clothing. He'd thought about that wonderful pressure as she'd leaned into him. He thought of delicious scent and of the warmth of her breath against his skin. He thought about the way she smiled at him. Never the big open smiles that teenage Moka gave him. The adult Moka had these slight grins and smirks that always seemed to hint at more. He loved teen Moka, he loved her warmth, her openness, and her kindness. But it seemed that her adult version kept preying on his mind. There was something about the older Moka that just drew him in. She was powerful and fearsome, and he always felt that he had to earn what he got from her. She was a challenge. Being so drawn to the adult Moka, he almost felt as though he were being unfaithful to the younger version. He knew that wasn't the case since they were both the same person, and shared the same memories. Still, he felt a little guilty at being so into the adult Moka. Is it possible to cheat on a girl with the same girl? He shook his head. This was pointless, he couldn't do anything about Moka right now anyway. There was something that he could deal with, however. It was something he'd been avoiding for a long time. But now he would face it head on. He sat down beneath a tree in the lotus position and shut his eyes. He calmly began to meditate and focus inward. "All right, you damn fox, the warden wants to have a word with you." Naruto found himself in the middle of a vast cemetery. "Well, I wasn't expecting this." He got up and began walking around to try and find the fox. As he searched, he glanced over at some of the tombstones. Here lies Uzumaki Naruto, murdered by the people he tried to serve. Here lies Uzumaki Naruto, unloved, unmourned, and forgotten. Here lies Uzumaki Naruto, whose death was a source of great joy. All the tombstones were similar, all of them recording some tragic end. "You know," he shouted, "I go to a school filled with monsters and I've had an entire village hate my guts. If you want to scare me, you'll have to do a lot better than this." From somewhere up ahead of him, laughter rumbled. "Oh, don't blame me. Everything you see here comes from your own mind." There was fresh laughter. "I'd say you have a poor outlook." Yeah, well, having a demon inside your guts will do that to a guy." He followed the sound of the voice to a large decrepit mausoleum. The entrance was barred by a rusted iron gate with a single paper seal placed on it. Beyond the gate there was only darkness. "I want to have a talk with you. I imagined that you did human. After all, this is the first time you've called on me. But really, shouldn't you be thanking me first?" "Thanking you?" he shouted. "For what? Destroying my life? Making my whole village hate me? Killing my parents?" Two large orange eyes suddenly appeared in the darkness behind the gate. "For giving you power when you needed it." "I'm not thanking you for that. So far as I'm concerned, that's the very least you owe me after all the grief you've caused. You know, human, I don't think I care much for your attitude. I am the great Lord Demon Fox Kyuubi, show me proper respect." Naruto smiled. "Fuck you." "What did you say?" The Kyuubi growled. "I said fuck you." Naruto shouted at him. "You're the great lord of nothing now. All you are is a prisoner inside my belly." Beneath the eyes 2 rows of jagged teeth appeared. "Have a care how you speak to me, mortal, or you will regret it." "How? What are you going to do to me?" Naruto demanded. "Make people hate me? Force me to live all alone? Send me to a place filled with monsters that think of me as a half-breed and occasionally try to kill me? Oh wait. You've already done all that. Face it, you've already caused me as much harm as you can. You have no idea what I can do to you, mortal worm." "Save it," Naruto replied, unimpressed. "I know all about how the seal works. You can't control me or hurt me unless I allow it. And hurting me doesn't really help you anyway, since if I die you die." He heard the Kyuubi growl. "I cannot let you die, that is true. But I can let you suffer. Perhaps the next time your mate is in danger I won't give you any of my power until your own life is in jeopardy. If Mocha dies because you won't give me power when I need it, I'll kill myself." The Kyuubi glared down at him. They both knew he was speaking the truth. "What do you want, human?" "I want you to give me free access to your power whenever I need it." "No. The stronger I am, the better chance I have of surviving," Naruto argued. "It's in your own interest to give me more power. It is in my own interest to keep you alive. If you have too much power you will be all the more likely to kill yourself." The Kyuubi paused, and Naruto got the sneaking suspicion the fox was plotting something. "However, there might be a way for you to gain greater access to my power safely." The sudden friendly tone set off all sorts of alarm bells. But he was still interested. "I'm listening," Naruto said warily. "Listen carefully, you will need to do exactly as I say." Naruto opened his eyes and was once again beneath a tree. "Damn baka fox," he muttered. "And I've got to be an even bigger baka to think about listening to him." He stood up and began heading back to the dorm. On his way back, he decided to take a slightly different, more scenic route. He went by a spot with a large pond that actually had living trees and vegetation. The sun was just rising, and it was pretty. It being so early in the morning, he'd expected to have the whole area to himself. He was a bit surprised to see a girl standing on the water's edge skipping stones. She had purple hair and was wearing a very casual outfit that included purple and white stockings. As he was running past, she turned around to look at him. She seemed to have a lollipop in her mouth. He thought she looked kind of cute, though nowhere near Mocha's league. He flashed her a big smile and waved as he ran past. "Good morning." The girl gawked at him in obvious surprise. She didn't say anything but managed to raise a hand in a half-hearted gesture as he went by. Kind of cute but shy, he decided. As he ran past, he forgot about her as he had many things on his mind. He first noticed it when he went down to the dorm cafeteria to eat. Conversations stopped and all eyes turned to him. He'd gotten used to getting a few jealous or unhappy looks from people. But this was different. Everyone stopped to look up at him. When he sat down at a table, the two others sitting there quickly got up to leave. The looks themselves had changed too. He recognized the looks, he'd seen them often enough. "They're afraid of me. Naruto-kun." As soon as he exited the dorm, Kurumu ran up to him. "Are you all right?" She grabbed his face and shoved it into her chest. "There are some crazy rumors going around. You're smothering him, you big-chested bimbo," Yukari said. Kurumu released her death grip and Naruto took a moment to regain his breath. "What sort of rumors?" "There's talk that you were attacked by a bunch of rogue monsters and that you killed one of them after getting a demonic aura. The whole school is talking about it," Kurumu said. "It's not true, is it?" "Don't be ridiculous," Yukari said. "Only the most powerful monsters have demonic auras. A human can't have one." "So, you weren't attacked yesterday?" Kurumu asked. The girls were putting him in a tight spot. He'd been planning to tell them nothing at all about the fight, and to say that Mocha had left the academy for a few days. But if the whole school already knew, let's go somewhere quiet and talk. They both looked stunned. "So, you wound up rescuing Mocha and killing their leader?" Kurumu said amazed. "And Mocha-chan is really alright?" Yukari said worriedly. "Yeah, I really did that, and Mocha-chan is fine. She just needs to sleep for the next few days to recover her strength." He'd told them a carefully censored version of events. A version that left out the Kyuubi's power or the fact he'd seen Mocha naked. "And you don't have a demonic aura, right?" Kurumu asked. He gave her an easy smile. "I'm human, how could I have one?" Both girls nodded, accepting that. "So, I guess these rumors about you having an aura are just an attack on you," Yukari said unhappily. "What are we going to do about them?" "We aren't going to do anything. I'll handle it, I've gone through worse, so it'll be fine. I don't want you girls getting into any trouble trying to help me." "But you don't want us to try and defend you from these lies?" Yukari pleaded. "No," Naruto said firmly. "Once people make their minds up about something, it's almost impossible to get them to change. Believe me, this is something I know about. If you two start trying to argue with people, you'll just make yourselves targets. So please don't do anything on my behalf." The girls were unhappy with that, but finally agreed. "Well, there's at least one good thing about this situation," Kurumu said. "What's that?" Yukari asked. Kurumu grabbed a hold of Naruto's arm, careful to make sure her breasts were pressing against it. "Since Mocha's asleep, I get to walk Naruto to class." "Yahoo!" Yukari immediately grabbed onto his other arm. "Don't get too excited, you blue-haired cow. He still belongs to Mocha." That was how he wound up walking to class that day with a pair of girls hanging off of him. By the time he was done with club activities, it was obvious just how much things had changed. People in the hall gave him a wide berth. In class, they avoided looking at him. When he did catch them looking, they immediately turned away. This was different from how it had been back in the village. Back then he'd seen plenty of fear in people's eyes, but even more hatred. They had been willing to glower at or threaten a small child. Here no one was about to come up to him and scream abuse in his face. It was definitely better than what it had been like in Konoha growing up. But it was worse than it had been when he was just a half-breed. At least then he was still accepted by the other students. His position was certainly low, but at least he could still interact with them normally. But now he felt like an outcast. That evening he went out into the woods to find a nice quiet spot. I really must be nuts to do this, he muttered. The problem was he wanted the Kyuubi's power. Having had it once, he wanted to be able to call on it whenever he needed. If he was going to survive, if he was going to protect Mocha and the others, he had to be as powerful as possible. And besides, he felt he had a right to the power inside of him. He'd spent his whole life being made to suffer because he was a jinchuuriki. It seemed only fair he should get the benefits. He didn't trust the Kyuubi, that went without saying. But it was in the Kyuubi's own interest for him to get stronger. This was a way to do that, maybe. But in any case, he was willing to try. He took out a kunai and cut his hand. Ninja had their own way to summon beings. It required a contract and a specific series of hand signs. But the Kyuubi had agreed to lend him the power to summon using the demonic method. He spread some of his blood on the ground and stepped back. He felt the Kyuubi's power suddenly filling him. He felt his face and hands transform and saw the demonic aura once more surround him with a cloak. Mocha and the others called it a demonic aura, but in his mind, he thought of it as red chakra. Since the Kyuubi had given him the power he needed for this, he concentrated and spoke the words. "Come forth, I summon you." With a burst of flame and heat, a man appeared directly in front of him. He was a bit taller than Naruto and had two weird dots above his eyes. He looked at Naruto in shock that very quickly turned to anger. "Who are you? How did you bring me here?" "I summoned you," Naruto said calmly. The stranger stared at him. He could obviously see and feel the demonic aura. "That is impossible. I am Kyuubi, a Yukai Kitsune. Only the Great Lord himself could summon me. I am the Great Lord Kyuubi." A deep voice boomed out. "Now kneel before me and hear the commands of your Lord." Chapter 13, Fire and Ice. Kyuubi stared, not believing. But there was no denying the power he felt. It was definitely the demonic aura of a Yukai Kitsune. The aura was not that strong. His own true form possessed 4 tails and was far greater than what he was sensing. There was also the fact that despite the physical transformation, the person standing in front of him reeked of humanity. But there was something else in the scent, a bare fragment that was buried beneath that human stink. It was the scent of a kitsune. Illusions could fool the eye. Voices and sounds could be copied. But there was no way to recreate a living scent. "My family has long served in the royal court," Kyuubi said carefully. "If you are truly the Great Lord, you would know my lineage." Naruto smiled. It was seriously weird speaking with the fox's voice. It was even stranger to be hearing the fox in his head. He was acting as a translator, giving the guy he'd just summoned the answers he was hearing in order to convince him. I know you, Rikio Kyuubi, son of Keitaro. Your family has served me well and faithfully. Now I call upon you to continue that service." No human could know his clan's name or the name of his father. He fell to his knees and cast his face down. "Great Lord, I am your humble servant. Command me and I shall obey. Then listen well and hear how you shall serve me. I am bound within the flesh of this human. It is my wish that he learns the ways of the kitsune and grows strong enough to wield my full power one day. Instruct him and protect him. Treat him with all the honor and loyalty as was shown to the mighty Cadmus. Kyuubi looked up, and there was understanding in his eyes. Naruto got the very definite feeling that he was missing something. My Lord Kyuubi, I understand, and I shall fulfill your wishes. Inside his head he heard the fox laughing. Then I trust you will serve me well. Naruto felt the voice in his head fade away. The red chakra disappeared and he transformed back to his normal form. Kyuubi got up to his feet and came forward. What is your human name? I will not refer to you as Lord Kyuubi. His manner was polite but stiff. Naruto answered carefully. I am Uzumaki Naruto. And tell me, Uzumaki-san, how did the most powerful of all Yukai Kitsune end up a prisoner in a human boy? The tone remained polite but the eyes flashed with emotion. 16 years ago the Kyuubi. Lord Kyuubi. Kyuubi snapped. Naruto looked up at the tall fellow with the flowing blonde hair. The Kyuubi, he repeated. Attacked my village. The most powerful ninja in the village was able to defeat him by sealing him into a human newborn, me. I see, Kyuubi replied courteously. Well, that does explain why the Great Lord has been away for so long. We all knew he was not dead. For so long as he lives no other Yukai Kitsune can gain 9 tails. You must feel most honored, many humans worshipped members of my race as gods. That is what the great Lord Kyuubi is to us, a being of such might and majesty as to be almost godlike. I hope you understand the rare privilege you enjoy being joined to such a divine presence. Naruto looked at him blankly. How about we leave my feelings for the Kyuubi out of this? I was told you could give me instruction in how to access the power inside me safely, and it will. Kyuubi nodded. I will teach you the same lessons I learned as a kid. Despite being human, you should still be able to access the power so long as Lord Kyuubi allows it. In time, you will be able to access greater and greater amounts of it. Until the day comes you are able to draw the full limit. I'm not really worried about that right now. I'd settle for just being able to draw some of it out whenever I need to. Very well, let us begin with your first lesson. You mean now? Naruto asked. It's kind of late, and I have homework. Kyuubi frowned at him. The Lord Kyuubi's instructions were clear. I am to teach you the ways of the kitsune. That is infinitely more important than any schoolwork. Well, alright, he smiled at the man. I guess since you'll be my teacher, I should call you Kyuubi-sensei. Kyuubi shrugged. You may call me that if you wish. And you can call me Naruto if you like. No, Kyuubi said firmly. Even if you are nothing more than a lowly human, you possess the divine presence of the Great Lord. I shall refer to you as Uzumaki-san. You're not exactly social, are you? Kyuubi frowned at him. Were you not the container of the Great Lord, I would want nothing to do with you human. To be blunt, I don't think any humans should be at this school even if they are of the border races. Humans are weak, cowardly, and treacherous and are the natural enemies of all monsters. I see, Naruto said. Well, alright, but just so you know I won't be inviting you to my next birthday party. Kyuubi gave an annoyed shake of his head. Let us start with the first most basic lesson. Kitsune are beings of passion and fire. For us our emotions bring out our full strength. But along with that passion must come a level of control. He held out his hand and created a large flame in the middle of his palm. Fire is our natural element, creating and shaping it are our innate gift. He made the flame blink out. Now I want you to concentrate on that kindling there and set it on fire. And just how do I do that? It's simple, just concentrate on the image of that wood burning and bring a little of the power out. Picture the fire and then make it happen. Just make it happen? Naruto said doubtfully. It is easy, now try. Several hours later. A frustrated and annoyed Kyuubi glared at him. Enough! The sun is almost up, we have wasted the entire night on something a newborn can do. Naruto gave the man an angry look of his own. He was tired and annoyed and sick of the pointless lesson. Well, maybe if you actually gave me some instruction on what to do I might manage it. I have told you what to do 100 times. Telling me to just do it or just bring the power out is not instruction. If I knew how to do that I wouldn't need a teacher in the first place. Enough of this, he began walking away. I have other duties I must attend to. We will meet again tonight. You know I'm going to need some time to sleep and study. With the Great Lord inside you 3 or 4 hours of sleep should be all you need. As for your school work you do not need to worry about it anymore. What does that mean? Naruto called out but Kyuubi did not bother to answer. Feeling beat and not in a very good mood he trudged back to the dorm. He decided to take the same route as yesterday. As he approached the pond, he spotted the same girl from last time. He watched as she skipped a stone across the calm water. He counted each of the skips before the stone disappeared. 7, that's pretty good. The girl turned around and looked up at him startled. Sorry, am I bothering you? She slowly shook her head. No, I'm just not used to having people talk to me. Really? I'd think a pretty girl like you would be awfully popular. She immediately blushed and looked away from him. Damn it, why do I always say the wrong thing? Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. She looked up at him shyly. That's all right. He approached her and picked up one of the pebbles on the ground. Mind if I try? She shook her head. He reared back and threw the stone as hard as he could. It went straight into the water with a decent-sized splash. She smiled a bit. You really suck at skipping stones. He gave her an embarrassed nod and rubbed the back of his head. Ah, come on, it's the first time I've ever tried this. She looked down at the ground and picked up a smooth pebble. She carefully placed it in his hand. Your angle is all wrong, you need to try and throw it so it hits the water almost flat. Don't throw it too hard, just relax and toss it. He nodded and gave it another try following her instructions. This time, the pebble did skip. It bounced across the water 3 times before disappearing. He turned to smile at her. Hey, you're a pretty good teacher. She blushed again. Thank you. You wouldn't know anything about how to make fire, would you? She stared at him for a second and then suddenly burst out laughing. He laughed a little too, but didn't think what he'd said was that funny. Sorry, she said once she had brought her laughter back under control. But I'm about the last person who would know anything about making fire. I see, well I need to get going and get ready for class. It was nice meeting you. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I am Shirayuki Mizore. May I call you Mizore-chan? She again blushed at his forwardness. Usually when boys tried to talk to her, her normal reaction was to run and hide. But there was something about this particular boy she just liked. It was almost as though he had a natural gift for making friends. Digging her foot into the sand a bit, she managed a slight grin despite her embarrassment. Sure, if you want. Great, and you can call me Naruto-kun if you like. He turned to go. It was really nice talking to you. Hey! He stopped and looked back at her. Yes? She hurried up beside him. Would you mind walking me back to my dorm? She carefully put a hand on his arm. He smiled. I'm always happy to escort a pretty girl and keep her safe. After a hot shower and big breakfast, Naruto stumbled into his homeroom. He could already tell it was going to be a long day. He was half asleep when there was a slight stir in the classroom. He opened one eye to spot a familiar face. His homeroom teacher spoke up in a pleased tone. Shirayuki-san, Nekonomi-sensei greeted. It's so nice to have you in class finally. Please take any open seat. The girl nodded and slouched over to a seat near Naruto's. Sitting down, she gave him a shy smile. I never knew we were in the same homeroom, Naruto-kun. I feel lucky. He returned her smile. Me too. Kurumu, who was sitting in the seat next to Naruto, did not fail to notice this friendly interaction. Before she could comment on it, though, the door to the room opened again. This time there was a much greater stir. A man with long blonde hair and a black coat entered the room. Nikanome-sensei's reaction to his presence was definitely a bit nervous. How can I help you, Kuyu-san? He gave her a polite bow and turned to address the class. I wish to make an announcement. Uzumaki Naruto has just been made a member of the Student Police Committee. I trust you will all treat him with the respect due his new position. What? Naruto sat up. This was news to him. I'm a member of what? Kuyu turned to him and gave him a bow. I will explain your new position and responsibilities when we meet after class tonight, Uzumaki-san. With that, Kuyu left. Naruto looked about. People in the class were all talking nervously and commenting not only on the announcement but on the respectful treatment Naruto had just received. He looked over to Kurumu. What the hell just happened? What is this student police thing? She shrugged. I don't know, I've never heard of it before. They're a special group of elite students who help keep order and enforce the rules on campus. Mizore spoke up. They have the power to investigate and even arrest people and hold them. They're kind of scary. Kurumu frowned at the purple-haired girl. Naruto, who is she? This is Mizore-chan, he said simply. My new friend. That evening he met with Kurumu and the other 4 members of the Student Police Committee at their gloomy headquarters. What's the big idea of enrolling me in a group without even asking me first? Naruto demanded. The other members looked stunned at the belligerent tone, and even more surprised when Kuyu did not tear the arrogant boy apart. You should be grateful, Uzumaki-san. I don't actually expect you to do anything for the committee. You can think of the title as honorary. And now that you are one of us, you won't need to worry about school work anymore. Just what does that mean exactly? The faculty and the committee share a certain understanding. Kuyu explained. They realize how many responsibilities we have maintaining the peace and order at this academy, and thus show us a certain amount of consideration. Consideration? A woman with long dark hair cleared things up for him. You can stop going to classes now. You'll pass everything with a B even if you never show up to a single class. They actually let you get away with that? Kuyu nodded. It is only reasonable, wouldn't you agree? This way we do not worry about pointless studies, and in return the faculty need not worry about our investigations. Sudden understanding dawned on him. The teachers are actually scared of you? The dark-haired woman smiled nastily. Anyone with sense would be scared of us. In any case, Uzumaki-san, Kuyu said. You no longer need to worry about your school work. Frowning, he turned to leave. You'll have to excuse me, I need to go study for my biology test tomorrow. Why bother? Kuyu asked. You'll get a B whatever you put down. My orders from the Hokage were to attend this school and pass my classes. That's my mission. A ninja should carry out his mission without looking for or expecting shortcuts. And to be honest, I don't want special treatment. As soon as he was gone, the dark-haired woman turned to Kuyu. Why are we taking that? Especially from a half-breed? I am under orders to protect and instruct in Kido. Regardless of what he is, Uzumaki Naruto is under my protection, which means he is under the protection of the committee. He looked at her and grinned. Is that clear? Unhappy, she still nodded. It's clear, even if I don't understand it. Kuyu nodded. It was enough that he would be obeyed. He thought about the story of Cadmus and the kitsune. It was a favorite tale and every kitsune knew it. Cadmus had been a giant. Hearing that kitsune had great magic, he found a young one and swallowed him whole. He immediately gained the use of the fox's magic and over the years grew very powerful. But one day all his great powers disappeared and he began to suffer terrible stomach pains. He watched as a fully grown fox tore its way out of his belly. The kitsune had survived being swallowed and simply waited until the day he could take all the giant's power and escape. When the great lord had mentioned Cadmus, he'd understood immediately the hidden instruction. Lord Kyuubi wanted Naruto to grow strong enough to wield my full power one day. But no human body could ever withstand that much power. At the nine-tailed state, the body would be fully and permanently transformed into a kitsune's. And no human seal would be able to prevent it. Naruto would cease to exist and the great lord would be fully restored. The challenge would be to keep Naruto alive until he was ready to attempt the nine-tail state. It was possible to have the great lord's personality emerge much sooner. Left unmanaged, he would have great influence at four tails and likely fully take over at the six-tail state. But that would be very dangerous. An uncontrolled transformation might very well kill Naruto and the great lord along with him. There was also the possibility of the two psyches being permanently merged together. The idea of the great lord being influenced by a human was distasteful in the extreme. No, the safest and surest route was to help Naruto along the path to power. To strengthen and protect him until he was ready for the final step, at which point Naruto would meet his demise and the great lord would be reborn. The following day, the bus was making a special trip in from the human world. "You seem to be handling the journey very well," the bus driver commented. The old ninja looked up from his notebook. "I've done a lot of traveling and seen a lot of things. This isn't that big a deal to me." "Oh really?" the bus driver said conversationally. The spiky-haired ninja smiled. "Of course, after all, I am Jiraiya, the legendary Toad Sage." Chapter 14, A Second Seal. Naruto was sitting down to a nice relaxing lunch with Kurumu and Yukari at one of the outdoor tables. His appreciation for his friends had only grown in the last couple days. Just about everyone else was treating him as though he might be contagious. Even the teachers seemed to be wary of him now. It was a real relief to be able to sit down with the two of them and actually be treated like a normal person. "So, when do you think Moka-chan will be back?" Yukari asked. "Well, hopefully either today or tomorrow," Naruto said. "Naruto-kun, why were you placed on the student police committee?" Yukari asked. "From what I can tell, they don't really like people like us. Not only that, but normally they only accept the most powerful students as members." That was a difficult question. "Well, it's really sort of an honorary thing. Koryu was asked to protect me, and this was his way of doing so." "Asked by whom?" Yukari wondered. "All I can say is it was someone very powerful." Yukari frowned. She was obviously not buying it. "Say Naruto-kun," Kurumu suddenly spoke. "What do you call that thing you wear on your forehead again?" "This is a Hittite. Why?" She pointed. "Because there's some weird old guy heading this way wearing one too." Naruto turned around to look. Sure enough, there was an old man with spiky white hair and a red and beige outfit heading straight towards them. He had on a Hittite, but it was not a leaf one. The symbol on it read, oil. The weird guy came straight up to him, though his eyes seemed to be focused on Kurumu's chest. "You're Naruto," he said. It wasn't a question. He held out a sealed envelope to him. "Read this." Naruto quickly took the envelope and opened it. The letter inside was short and to the point. It also bore the signature and seal of the fifth Hokage. When he was done, he looked up at his visitor with surprise. "You're Jiraiya? One of the Sannin?" He remembered Irika's lessons on the exploits of the Sannin. "I sure am, kid. I'm the one and only Jiraiya, famed toad sage and author, as well as a legendary lover of women. Though addressing Naruto, his eyes remained locked on Kurumu's yellow sweater. Naruto quickly got up to stand in front of Kurumu. Hey! Could you at least be a little less obvious, you pervert? She's only 16. Kurumu giggled. Oh, you don't need to be upset, Naruto-kun. I take it as a compliment. And if he causes me any trouble, I'll just charm him and turn him into my slave. Jiraiya leered at her. Sounds like a great way to spend the weekend. He gave Naruto an approving grin. Not too bad, kid, you've only been here a few months and you've already got 3 girls. 3? Naruto was surprised and slightly alarmed. How did he know about Mocha? Jiraiya nodded towards a nearby trash can. I'm counting the little honey over there who is stalking you. All eyes turned to the garbage can. A purple-haired head popped up from behind it. Hi. Mizore-chan, Naruto said. What are you doing back there? Having lunch, she answered tranquilly. I've got to give you credit, kid, Jiraiya said admiringly. I didn't get my first stalker until I was 19. He gave him an obvious wink. So, are you dating all of them? No, Naruto said sharply. I happen to have a girlfriend. At that statement, Kurumu looked annoyed, Yukari looked pleased, and Mizore looked very disappointed. You've got a girlfriend on top of these 3? Nice. Jiraiya chuckled, but then finally seemed to become a bit more serious. Anyway, kid, as that letter says, I'm here to evaluate your situation and take whatever steps prove necessary. Now we need to go somewhere private where we can talk. We can go to my room, Naruto said. Fine, said Jiraiya. But Naruto-kun, lunch is almost over, said Yukari. What about class? This is an order from my Hokage, it takes precedence over everything else. Alone together in Naruto's room and away from any pretty distractions, Jiraiya became all business. He pointed to Naruto's hitai. Take that off, you're not a ninja and it's a crime to wear one unless you are. Naruto crossed his arms over his chest stubbornly. Iruka-sensei gave this to me and said he considered me to be a ninja. Anyway, it might be a crime for me to wear it in Konoha, but it's not against the law here. Jiraiya gave him an annoyed look. Fine then, wear it if you want, but remember it doesn't change your status in the village. Now let me get to the reason why I'm here. We just received a report that you used the Kyuubi's chakra. I'm here to confirm whether or not that was the case and to get an oral report from you on exactly what happened. I see, Naruto answered warily. Well, it's true, I did use the demon's chakra during a fight. I had to, if I hadn't, I'd have died. Jiraiya nodded and took out his notebook. Go ahead and tell me everything that happened. Naruto knew that Jiraiya was right and that technically he was not a ninja. But in his own mind he'd been one since the day Iruka gave him his hitai. From that time on he had consciously tried to act as a ninja. Despite the bad memories and hard feelings, he was still determined to return to his village and be a fine ninja. His dream was to earn respect. Not from the village or from the Hokage or his fellow ninjas. He wanted to earn Iruka's respect, he wanted Iruka-sensei to be proud of him. That was his dream. His duty as a ninja was to report everything that had happened involving the Kyuubi. However, as Mocha had pointed out just a few days ago, trust was a precious thing and not easily earned. Naruto did not trust his village or the Hokage or the stranger standing in front of him, even if he was Jiraiya. Everything that touched the Kyuubi was dangerous to him and needed to be handled with the greatest of care. There was also the matter of Mocha's involvement in the original fight. He would not do or say anything that would put her in danger. His decision was to tell Jiraiya most of what had happened involving the Kyuubi. He described in detail the effects of the transformation and of gaining the red chakra. He admitted to making contact with the Kyuubi and gave a fairly accurate description of the conversation. But in his version the Kyuubi agreed to aid him directly, he made no mention of Kuyu. Likewise, he did not mention Mocha at all. The Sannin listened to everything Naruto had to say while scribbling notes down. When Naruto was done, Jiraiya looked him in the eye. "You left some things out, didn't you? Tell me everything, kid." "I already have," Naruto said calmly. "Don't even try, kid, I've been interrogating people since before you were born. I can spot a lie a mile away and your story doesn't ring true. What are you hiding?" "Nothing. This isn't a game, kid, the Hokage needs to know everything." "Now what aren't you telling me?" "Nothing," Naruto remained calm. "I'm sorry if what I've told you isn't what you want to hear." Jiraiya frowned, he was certain Naruto was leaving something out. "I can arrest you and haul you back to Konoha for interrogation." "Fine, I'll pack my things." Jiraiya stared at him and Naruto stared right back. Finally, it was Jiraiya who broke eye contact. "All right, but if you should happen to remember something later, send a letter out to your old address in Tokyo, we'll receive it. Now take off your coat and shirt." Naruto looked at him suspiciously. "Why? You into boys too, you big pervert?" "Quiet, kid. I happen to be the world's top seal master. I am going to inspect the condition of your seal, and I'm going to give you a second one that will help you in drawing the Kyuubi's chakra." "You're kidding. You mean the village is actually going to give me some help?" "That's right, kid," Jiraiya said solemnly. "Well, it's about time." He eagerly began removing his clothes. "Maybe you can help me with learning jutsus." "No," Jiraiya said sternly. "I'm not going to teach you anything about any jutsus or give you any information. My mission was to collect your report, check your seal, and add the second seal if you really had accessed the Kyuubi's chakra. That's it, I'm not here for anything else." "But..." Naruto was eager to tell him about Yukari's book and about the fact that he was learning jutsus on his own. "No buts, kid," Jiraiya cut him off. "The Hokage doesn't want you learning any jutsus until you come home." "He doesn't?" "No, he doesn't. He wants you to try and develop your ability with the Kyuubi's power, but he doesn't want you learning any additional jutsus or ninja techniques. Your ninja training will begin again once you're back in the village. Until then, just concentrate on your schoolwork and on developing your demonic abilities. That is why you were sent here after all." "I see." Naruto was very glad that Yukari's book was well hidden. Once Naruto's shirt was off, Jiraiya did a thorough examination on the seal. He finally nodded in satisfaction. "The seal is holding just fine." Now, he took out a jar of ink and a paintbrush. "I'll add the second seal." The Yandame's seal had been placed on his belly. Jiraiya's was being carefully drawn on his chest. It was intricate and Jiraiya went about painting it on slowly and carefully. "Say pervert," Naruto said idly. "Damn it, kid, call me Jiraiya, or better yet call me Jiraiya-sama." "So, pervert," Naruto continued. "I want to ask you something." "What?" Jiraiya continued to draw carefully. "You were the first one offered the position of 5th Hokage, right?" "That's right, what about it?" "I was just wondering, why'd you turn it down?" "The Hokage is recognized as the most powerful ninja in the village. I can't imagine why anyone would turn that down. I sure wouldn't if it were ever offered to me. I turned it down because I damn well knew I wasn't fit to be Hokage." "But you're a Sannin. Who could be more powerful than you?" Jiraiya shook his head slightly as he dipped his brush in the ink jar. "Being Hokage isn't just about raw power and fighting ability. It demands something that I was lacking. A sense of morality?" Jiraiya grinned, actually appreciating the dig. "No, though that was the excuse I gave the council. What I lacked, kid, was the necessary and vital ability to harden my heart." "Huh?" Jiraiya sighed and tried to explain. "A Hokage is not only the strongest ninja in the village. The Hokage is also the one who is responsible for the safety and well-being of the entire village. He must make decisions that are for the best for the village as a whole. That often means having to make some cruel choices, sacrificing individuals for the greater good. Naruto immediately thought of his father and the decision he had made. The sad truth is the Hokage must be willing to do terrible things if they lead to a greater good.
You mean like plant a demon into an innocent baby? Naruto said dryly.
That is one example, Jiraiya said quietly.
There are many others.
One of the terrible facts about being Hokage is that you must be ready to sacrifice the individual for the greater good.
Destroy an innocent man if it saves 1,000 others. That's a part of being Hokage, and I knew it wasn't in me.
I knew the third and fourth Hokages very well. One was my sensei and one was my student. They were both good and decent men. But they both had the ability to harden their hearts when it was necessary.
That was just one skill I never managed to pick up.
I could never give that sort of order. He added a few more brush strokes. Though I've done terrible things when receiving such an order.
He added quietly.
Before too much longer he was finally done. He put away his ink and brush.
Seal.
Naruto felt a slight burning sensation as the ink was made into a permanent seal.
How's it feel, kid?
Not too bad, Naruto rubbed the spot on his chest. Jiraiya looked at him sadly.
I want you to know something, kid.
What I did under the Hokage's orders.
I had no choice. Please forgive me. He made a simple hand sign. Pain.
Ah! Naruto screamed as it felt as though a sword had been slammed into his chest. He collapsed to the floor clutching where the pain was, below his new seal.
Jiraiya ended it after only 3 seconds.
Naruto was still on the floor gasping.
I'm really sorry, I had to do that, kid. But my orders were that I give you a demonstration. Lying on the floor, Naruto looked up at the old ninja. What did you do me?
That seal I placed over your heart, I'm afraid I lied about what it was for.
Jiraiya answered.
It has nothing to do with gathering the Kyuubi's chakra.
It's a variation of the Hyuga caged bird seal.
It can be used to stop your heart as I just did, to inflict pain. It can also be used to destroy your heart and kill you instantly.
Naruto stared up numbly.
The sheer betrayal of what had just been done to him.
Why?
Jiraiya sighed.
Why do you think, kid?
You've just started to access one of the greatest powers known to man, a power that almost destroyed the village. The Hokage decided that this was the best way to ensure your loyalty.
I was already loyal.
I was going to return and serve the village.
Why couldn't I have been given the same chance to prove myself as any other ninja?
Because, kid, none of those other ninja have the power to wipe out the village. Maybe you would have been loyal, but the Hokage decided he couldn't take the chance. And since he uses seals to control members of his own clan, it's not really surprising he would decide to use one on you. Naruto slowly got back to his feet.
Why don't you just go ahead and kill me now then? Jiraiya shook his head. You don't get it, do you? The Hokage doesn't want you dead. Dead. He really does want you to learn how to access the Kyuubi's power while you're here. He wants you to return to Konoha and become a ninja and serve the village. You can become the most powerful weapon in our arsenal. You alone could guarantee Konoha's safety and supremacy. And if I ever step out of line, you kill me, Naruto said bitterly. I won't be a ninja, I'll just be a tool or a slave. It won't be that bad, you'll get to have a good life. You'll be treated with respect and be really well paid. I'm sure that before long people will see you as a hero. A hero? Naruto laughed cynically. Heroes act out of their own free will. I've just had mine taken from me. Look, kid, I'm not asking for your forgiveness or even your understanding.
Maybe those things will come in time, but for right now you have to accept this is how things are.
Now that new seal is an S-rank secret, you're not to tell anyone about it. Given what it can do, you don't want people knowing it exists. Only 3 people will know about it, you, me, and the Hokage. Not even the council will know. The Hokage and I will be the only ones who will know how to activate your seal. It will only be used as last resort. So long as you are loyal, you have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of? He began laughing. Jiraiya looked down. He wasn't proud of this and had tried to argue the Hokage out of it. But Hayashi's mind had been set. He relied on seals to maintain the loyalty within the cadet branch Hyuga. He would rely on one to guarantee Naruto's loyalty. If it means anything to you, kid, I really am sorry. He turned to go. Wait a minute. Naruto shouted. Since you've done this to me, can you at least do me one small favor? Jiraiya turned back. What sort of favor? Can you give me just 5 minutes to write a letter to Iruka-sensei and then deliver it to him? I won't mention what just happened to me or anything else that is supposed to be a secret. You can read the letter and make sure there's nothing dangerous in it. I just want to tell Iruka that I'm alright and about how my life is going now. Your old sensei really matters to you, doesn't he? Jiraiya felt an old ache as he recalled Sarutobi and how much the old man had meant to him. He shook his head sadly. Alright, kid, I'll do one thing for you that I shouldn't. I'll share a piece of information with you. Jiraiya took a deep breath. Iruka is dead, I'm sorry. What? How, when? Ever since the attack on the village, we've been short-handed. We've needed everyone to do all that they could. Iruka died on a mission to Wind Country a little over 2 years ago. 2 years? His voice echoed. I couldn't even be told and allowed to mourn for him? The Hokage thought. Go to hell, he turned away from Jiraiya. Seeing there was nothing more to be done, Jiraiya quietly left. This isn't official, Naruto. Technically you are only a citizen of Konoha and will not become a ninja until you return to the village. But, so far as I am concerned, you are a ninja. Be strong and remember everything I have taught you, and I know we will meet again one day. After Jiraiya's visit, he had blown off the rest of his classes as well as club and would not be meeting Koyu. He was standing on one of the academy's rooftops staring at the setting sun. He had his hittite in his hands and was remembering the last words Iruka had spoken to him. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He thought. I was going to be a great ninja and you were going to be proud of me. How did it come to this? He was so lost in his own thoughts that he didn't hear the door to the roof open or the steps approaching him. The first he noticed was when he felt 2 arms wrap around to embrace him. Naruto-kun. A sweet voice shouted his name. I've been looking everywhere for you. Why weren't you in class or club? He turned around to look into the face of his beautiful girlfriend. She was in her teenage form with her long flowing pink hair and innocent green eyes. Smiling, he wrapped his arms around her and returned the embrace, pulling her tight. Sorry about that, Moka-chan, I just decided I needed some time alone. How long have you been awake? She pressed her face into his neck. His delicious scent set her mind at ease. About 2 hours, I've been looking for you this whole time. I'm sorry if I made you worry, Moka-chan, he said tenderly. It's all right, she said and pressed herself against him. Now that we are together again, everything is all right. He held her for a while in a warm, comfortable silence. Moka-chan? Yes? Do you remember asking me about my future plans? How I told you I was going to return to Konoha and be a ninja? Yes, what about them? He let go of his hold and held out his hittite to her. This is a symbol of my loyalty to my village. In his other hand he took out a kunai. In a clean and certain slice he cut a deep slash right along the middle of the metal plate, cutting the leaf symbol almost perfectly in 2. What are you doing? She wondered.
This is what ninja do when they decide to go rogue and become missing mean.
It means I no longer bear any loyalty to Konoha.
She was not upset by this sudden change of heart, but she was surprised.
What's changed?
I had a little visit today. He opened up his shirt to reveal the new seal that was over his heart. He told her everything. And as he did so, he saw a look come over her face that he hadn't seen there before. Though he'd seen it on the adult Mocha more than once. It was a look of pure fury. How could they do that to you? How could they be so faithless? She looked and sounded absolutely livid.
It's because they don't really want me as a ninja, Naruto said dully. They want me to be an obedient slave. I hate them, she said suddenly and with real passion.
I hate that they could hurt someone as kind and decent as you, Naruto-kun, and do it so callously.
I really do hate them.
Good, he slowly nodded.
Because I hate them too.
He gave her a wicked and slightly fox-like grin.
And one day I swear I will pay them back everything I owe them.
That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.